this, I change the questions. It's me, Austin.
Who are you to doubt El Daniel? Because this guy's a serious professional.
Brett screwed Brett.
Yeah! Can he do it? Power! Oh, and a kick out! Unbelievable!
Too hot to handle and too cold to hold. And I am the Macho King Savage.
Woo! Such a massive thong wearing fatty.
Promotional consideration paid for by the following.
Hey, yo, Pro Wrestling Podcast listeners, welcome to the show where we don't sing it, we bring it. Help us out and click subscribe to show your support. Are you sick and tired of dropping $60 to $100 for the latest and greatest wrestling video game? Stop immediately. Go to Wrestler Unstoppable, available exclusively through Facebook. Create a wrestler, sign contracts, get into storylines, headline pay-per-views, even build your own corporation, all included in Wrestler Unstoppable, totally free to Facebook users. If you want to become a member of the Pro Wrestling Podcast family, you want your name in the shout-outs like my good buddy John down in Texas. John, loving giving you that shout-out. Then pop over to our Patreon page at patreon.com/Pro Wrestling Podcast. Sign up today. We have loyalty rewards, a $15 a month contributor. You get to co-host an episode with myself. If you are a $7.50 a month contributor, you can also co-host one of our live shows. Hello, everybody, and welcome to this episode of the Pro Wrestling Podcast. If you have questions, comments, or something you want us to get into in a later episode, drop us a line at the Pro Wrestling Sound Off line 267-642-1160, and we will get to those as soon as we can in a future episode. Lots of news. This is the big week. It is WrestleMania week. It's been a hot minute since we've done an episode, so we want to catch you up on the day's news and rumors. We are going to go over WrestleMania. The card has been officially announced. The latest betting odds are out there, and it's time to have a conversation about where we think things are going to go and talk about the day's news. Starting with Endeavor, the big news of the day, Endeavor is going to be taken private by an investment firm, but the TKO brand will remain a publicly traded company. So there's going to be a private ownership payout per share in cash for the Endeavor Holdings Incorporated. And what this does for WWE, not quite sure at this point. The official press release doesn't really include the TKO Group Holdings, which is the publicly traded company that is the essentially the controlling body of WWE and UFC. Endeavor would be the parent group of that group. So it's an interesting dynamic, but that is definitely a huge bit of news, because this group that is looking to make the purchase, called Silver Lake, is basically going to take that investment and hope to grow the investment. And what they typically would do is grow the investment and then resell whatever it was that they purchased. Not sure how that'll work in terms of Endeavor, but we'll have to wait and see. But it's definitely something to keep an eye on. Interestingly enough, this is only a week after Vince McMahon sold $100 million more of stock in WWE. He's down to about, I think somebody said there's like 15 million shares that he still has or something of that nature. So we'll have to see where he goes with that. He still has quite a sum of money wrapped up in TKO stock, but no longer in the company. And then got to jump into the conversation about CM Punk. It was a big news story today about CM Punk going into details during an interview on the MMA Hour podcast, talking about a variety of things. But the big headline coming out of the interview had to do with the fight with Jack Perry. There was a brief conversation about the media scrum from Brawl Out, or Brawl In, all the brawling, who knows which one we're talking about. The first one he didn't speak at length about, kind of breezed past it, took some shots at AEW in general, Hangman Page and the like. Didn't mention the Elite in any part of it. But then when it got into the conversation about Jack Perry, he went into a lot of great detail about his frustrations. It started with him at the airport and having nobody there to pick him up. It went on about Jack Perry's on-camera comment about the real glass at All In, and he knows that there was a quote in there about him talking about how it was directed at him, but it wasn't really about that. That wasn't the primary issue. He mentioned that he had gone to when he heard the comment, that he went to Tony Khan and asked him to handle it. And Tony Khan apparently didn't. He made it very clear that he wanted him to handle it. And he said, you don't want me to do this, and whatnot. And he ended up walking up to Jack Perry and, asked him why he had to do, I think the reference, the phrase he used was do this internet BS or something of that nature. And Perry, according to Punk, Perry responded with, if you've got a problem with it, do something, basically. And that Punk was clear, like, are you kidding me? I could kill you, But he made the comment that he never struck anybody. He did put him in a chokehold briefly, that Samoa Joe had asked him to stop. That after that, he was told by security that Jack Perry was asked to leave. He was hanging out with the House of Black and Samoa Joe, getting ready for his match and whatnot. They had their match. He was all fired up. When he came back, he was going to watch the rest of the show. And I guess a security guy named Sam came back to him and talked to him about what his expectations for the night were. And he, I guess, could read through what was being asked and basically realized that the security guy was really asking because he was hoping he would leave just because it would make his night easier, which he then eventually did. He said a couple times about how when it all went down, he said that he was quitting. He actually gets asked at one point on if he knew it was his last match, the one with Joe, and he said, I'm like, this is the last time I'm ever going to wrestle Samoa Joe. This is my last match in this company. They said, do you know it was your last match? He said, yeah, I effing quit. So clearly Punk was fed up at that point. He takes shots at the company, the way it's run. In terms of Tony Khan, what I thought was really interesting, they asked him about working for Tony Khan, and he said, it's a loaded question. I don't like the drama, but the truth is the truth. He's not a boss. He's a nice guy. Ultimately, that's a detriment to the company, but it's not my company. I'm an outsider. I thought I was brought in to sell merchandise and tickets and draw numbers for pay-per-view. I clearly did that, but that's not what the place is about, and some people didn't like that. And it's an interesting take on AEW. We've heard a lot about how Tony Khan doesn't necessarily run the company the way a company needs to be run. There's a lack of accountability and whatnot. And this would go to support that. Now, of course, this is just Punk's perspective. Jack Perry in New Japan now is clearly of the opinion that he's the scapegoat. He's copywritten that as his name for New Japan. That he somehow is being stuck with all the blame for losing CM Punk. There's word that Tony Khan is still mad at him for losing him CM Punk, the company's biggest star and whatnot. And look, at the end of the day, I've had a problem with what Jack Perry did all along because it's just not professional to do the things the way he did them. And there's no need to take unnecessary risks. I say that coming off the heels of, the Sting's last match where they used glass and some of it shattered and flew into the crowd. I would not take those risks in a company that, let's be honest, yes, they can draw, on a good day, they can draw just over 1 million people to their shows, but normally that's not the case. Normally they're in the 800 to 850,000 viewers for Dynamite. And that's a small company in comparison to a lot of other companies out there. I would not be taking those chances. And I've never had a problem saying that. I think Punk probably shouldn't have choked the guy out, but let's not forget, this is professional wrestling. If you go back to the 60s, 70s, 80s, if something like this happened in the back, they'd have beat the living snot out of somebody for coming across like a punk kid and throwing their weight around saying, what are you going to do about it? There's stories about Harley Race pulling guns on people, and stuff like that. Get the talent. And Punk has always been known as being like an old school talent. The talent holds the talent accountable. The Undertaker was the judge, jury, and executioner in WWE. There's people who have a role, and he was expected to have a role, and he thought that's what he was doing. And Tony Khan didn't handle it, so he did. At least that's his perspective. So it's interesting how all that comes out now. And I'm sure there's a report about how people receive this, people in AEW. One person stated that it makes it obvious that they all could have been avoided. Absolutely, it could have. After the incident with Collision where Jack Perry was talking about the glass thing, Tony Khan should have addressed it with him and said, we're never using glass. And don't ever mention it again. That should have happened at Collision. That shouldn't have waited till All In. Tony Khan should have gone right to him and confronted him about it and not sent Punk to do his work. It's not Punk's company. It's Tony Khan's company. And that's disrespect for one of your senior stars. And, that's a problem. So, I don't know. I'll leave it up to you guys to decide how that should have gone down. But I found the interview quite interesting. There was a lot more in there. It's a conversation about Hangman Page and how he felt about AEW as a whole and whatnot, that there's a non-disparagement agreement between the two parties, so they can't trash talk each other or whatnot, which is ludicrous, but whatever. But I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. And before I move on to Mania, let's stick with AEW just for a moment, because the one thing that they've gotten a lot of positive press about is during the pandemic and since, Tony Khan lets talent's contracts run out. He always likes to keep people employed and whatnot. But today, AEW released talent for the first time. Now, my understanding is there will be no non-compete clauses attached to these wrestlers. He's just going to let them go so they can find work and feed their families, I think was the quote that I saw. But according to a report from Fightful Select, Parker Boudreaux, former WWE superstar and AEW superstar, who just showed up in AAA for their big show, the Boys, who used to be with Dalton Castle in Ring of Honor, who were just about to be at Supercard of Honor, Anthony Henry, Jorah Joel, Slim J, Gravity, Jose the Assistant, all those talents have been released. Stu Grayson, Dasha Corrette. I mean, these are people. In the past, Tony's been known for not letting people go. This is a first for him, and it makes you wonder, after these big signings of Mercedes Moné and Kazuchika Okada and Will Ospreay, is Tony Khan running out of cash, and now he's doing it because he has to keep the company profitable, which is possible, especially when there's reports out there of potentially, there's no confirmed, but potentially Mercedes Moné's contract being a 5-year, $50 million deal. That means leaves a lot less cash on the table for other talents that you're not really featuring. So maybe that has something to do with it. All right, the last segment for tonight, let's get into the WrestleMania card, predictions, and odds, because the odds as of right now are out. I'm not going to do the Andre the Giant Battle Royal in terms of odds. I'll just say I think Bronson Reed should win the Andre the Giant Battle Royal on Friday Night SmackDown. I really don't see anybody else in the match that really should get that. Maybe Ivar if you want to push him hard as a singles guy. Maybe Andrade if you want to give him something to do, since essentially up till this point you've done nothing with him of substance. But otherwise, I think Bronson Reed should walk out with that. But getting into the actual WrestleMania card, let's start with Dakota Kai, Asuka, and Kairi Sane Damage Control taking on Bianca Belair, Jade Cargill, and Naomi. The odds-on favorites, Bianca Belair, Jade Cargill, and Naomi, a minus 2,000 favorite. I'm absolutely in agreement with that. There's no way Jade Cargill loses her first match in WWE. That's an easy pick for me. The 6-man tag team Philadelphia Street Fight, Bobby Lashley and the Street Profits, the minus 200 favorite to the plus 150 Final Testament. I think what this boils down to is, what are you doing with the Final Testament afterwards, and what are you doing with Bobby Lashley going forwards? If you're going to keep Final Testament as a group, they have to start winning something at some point. They've done nothing of importance. If you're going to take Bobby Lashley, and rumor is he wants to go back to being like Bobby Lashley a couple years ago, because really, Lashley's done almost nothing important too for the last year or so, then you have to have him win and go over strong and maybe even break away from the Street Profits, because I don't think that's helping him anymore to have a faction. I don't know what they're going to do. I know the odds say Lashley and the Street Profits. There's not a lot of the matches on the card that I think are going to go the other way. This is one I'm going to go with the Final Testament, the underdog, the plus 150 underdog, just because I think you can easily have Bobby Lashley come out of this and be angry and destroy the Street Profits and go off and be a single star again. And that way you're not squashing 3 other talents in the Final Testament. So that if I was WWE, that's the direction I would go. I'm hoping that's where they go to make me accurate in my predictions. The tag team match, Dominic Mysterio, Santos Escobar, the minus 250 favorites over Rey Mysterio and Dragon Lee. If you watch SmackDown, you know that there was a look on Carlito's face when that all went down. I suspect Carlito is going to interfere in the match, help Dominic and Santos. They are the minus 250 favorite over Mysterio and Dragon Lee's plus 170. I agree with that. Dominic Mysterio and Santos Escobar win the tag team match. In a singles match, LA Knight, the minus 600 favorite against AJ Styles plus 300. The original line opened at minus 1,000 and AJ Styles is a plus 500, so they've shifted a little bit, trending a slightly different direction, but that's still a big favorite. I'm agreeing with that. LA Knight goes over. He needs the win to have any chance to be a viable contender to anything, and he's a star that built a lot of credibility last year. AJ Styles deserves to be at the top of the card, but for whatever reason, WWE just isn't booking him that way right now, so I think LA Knight goes over. In the Battle of the Brothers, Jimmy and Jey Uso. Jey Uso, the minus 250 favorite over Jimmy's plus 170. I actually agree with that as well. Jey Uso goes over Jimmy. I think there's probably some interference from Solo Sikoa, but I still think Jey Uso picks up the win. In the United States Championship match, Logan Paul minus 450 favorite over both Kevin Owens at plus 400 and plus 425 for Randy Orton. I agree Logan Paul retains here as the minus 450 favorite because I think he's going to keep that championship until SummerSlam, where I think he may actually lose that championship either to LA Knight or to Bad Bunny. I'm curious to see how that plays out. The Intercontinental Championship, Gunther, a minus 300 favorite over Sami Zayn, and I am praying that Gunther does win that match. I'm predicting Gunther wins that match. I do love everything they're doing with Zayn and Chad Gable. I think that's pretty cool, but I think Gable turns because he wants that championship, and that's going to cost Sami Zayn. So I think Gunther does retain. I think Gunther keeps that championship until somebody who is the next budging star, maybe a Ilya Dragunov coming up from NXT after Mania or whatnot. I don't think Gunther loses it at Mania. I really don't. In the WWE Women's World Championship match, Rhea Ripley, a minus 500 favorite over Becky Lynch's plus 300. Again, I agree. The odds open at minus 400 for Rhea. It's gone up from there. I couldn't agree more. Rhea is on fire right now in terms of her popularity. Rhea Ripley retains. In the WWE Women's Championship match, Bayley, the minus 700 favorite over Io, who's a plus 400. I agree again. Bayley, minus 700 favorite, is going to take that championship. It brings everything full circle for Damage Control. I couldn't agree more. This one gets a little more interesting to me. Drew McIntyre versus Seth Rollins. Drew McIntyre is the minus 650 favorite over Seth Rollins plus 375. I think McIntyre does win. However, I also think that Damian Priest cashes in Money in the Bank no matter who wins and takes that championship, which there are no betting odds on the site that I'm looking at. So I think, yes, Drew McIntyre wins, but even if he doesn't, it doesn't really matter who wins. Neither one of them, I think, is walking out of Mania with the championship. I think the championship goes home with Damian Priest. The tag team match night one, Roman Reigns and The Rock, the minus 700 favorites to Cody and Seth plus 400. I think storyline-wise, the only thing that could mess with me a little bit here is there's word coming out that they may want to do a Cody versus The Rock match late 2024, and I don't know how you get there unless you turn Reigns face. And the only way you could turn Reigns face would be to get the championship off him and somehow have The Rock stay heel, but I don't see how to do that unless The Rock lays out Roman Reigns and Cody and drapes Cody over Roman Reigns in their match. I don't know. Let's start with the tag team match. Yes, I think Roman Reigns and The Rock go over. They win strong, minus 700. I agree 1,000%. Then we get to the Cody and Roman Reigns match, the main event. Night 2, Cody Rhodes, the minus 400 favorite over Roman Reigns, plus 250. The only thing that can mess with that would be if they want to go for the Hulk Hogan record in September, they keep the belt on Reigns. I don't think they do that. And now that I'm having this discussion with you now, I think the perfect scenario is Cody and Roman have a classic match, and at some point in the match, because they're doing this whole like throwback to the Attitude Era, I think The Rock is the special referee under the Samoan Dynasty rules or whatever. And I think that what ends up happening is he'll maybe chair shot Roman and Cody and then place Cody on top of Roman, giving Cody the end of his story, but not the way he really wanted it to be, ending Roman's reign, no pun intended, and then creating an opportunity for Roman to go face and face The Rock at SummerSlam. The Rock would stay a heel at that point and then go on to face Cody at Survivor Series or maybe the Rumble next year. I think that would be the best way to play it out if that's the plan, to have Cody versus The Rock at some point. The only thing that I would love to see before that, I really want to see Seth and Roman, Seth and The Rock. And I didn't think I'd want to see that, but after Monday night, seeing Seth want to fight The Rock on Raw made me want to see that match really bad. I want to see the Cody and Rock match as well, but I don't know. So the prediction is Cody Rhodes does finish the story at WrestleMania, and he wins the WWE Undisputed World Heavyweight Championship. So that being said, that's all the time we have for this episode. Check back with us next episode where we run down the latest wrestling news and rumors. Special thanks, as always, out to bensound.com and purpleplanet.com. They produce any music or sound effects we use in our shows. Today's show is sponsored in part by Beazle Games. Bring a new friend to family game night. It's easy with sketchy people. Showcase your artistic side in this game from Beazle Games by going to thegamecrafter.com and picking up your copy today. If you're looking for your next career move, you're considering college or university life, or maybe you just need some formal training for your next career decision, go to our sister website at frolifeplanning.com for all your higher education needs, as Fro Life Educational Planning is for today, for tomorrow, and for life with Fro Life. Before we go, one last shout out. May 11th, 2024, Eisenhower Middle School, Norristown, Pennsylvania. Dr. Fro, that would be me. My second ever professional wrestling match takes place that night. I would love to see some of our listeners at that show, run by the 3WA, Worldwide Wrestling Alliance, out of Hatfield, Pennsylvania. Dino Santa is the promoter. He's a great guy helping us with a fundraiser. Feel free to grab tickets as soon as they become available in the next 2 weeks. And hopefully we'll get to see you guys at that show. Take care, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. And until next time, have a good one.